Excellent. Are my fellow panelists around? I see Jan, I see Friedrich, Jonna. Okay, great. And Matthias, are you here as well?
Yes, let me turn on my share.
All right. I'm very excited about this panel because it is all about talking to four excellent people who are building amazing stuff on top of Wikidata that is actually making the world better. And I'm here with Jan from GovDirectory, Jonna from CiviData, and Matthias from LSD Effect, and Friedrich from Open Sanctions. And how about we start with you guys telling us about what your projects are all about? Jan, do you want to start?
Sure. So GovDirectory we're trying to build a community-powered directory where the online presence of all public organizations in the entire world of all levels is available. And we do this to empower people to engage with their governments. That's what we're trying to do.
Excellent. Jonna, how about CiviData?
Yeah, CiviData is kind of similar. We are trying to show the civil societies of different countries, so mainly NGOs and the whole nonprofit scene. And CiviData shows data to rank these organizations and to show which organizations might be most important in which country by different measures like financial data, member data, employees, and things like that.
Matthias, how about LSD Effect?
LSD Effect is both a platform and a small movement in Brazil for independent fact checkers. Our main work is mostly on education. Democratizing fact checking is our dream, and we want to do that through technology, and Wikidata helps a lot.
Excellent. And last but not least, Friedrich, how about Open Sanctions?
Hi, Lydia. Yeah, we're building a database that contains, or that is aiming to contain, a lot of the really interesting people geopolitically in the world. So that includes people who are subject to international sanctions and watch lists, but also political office holders that you might need to know about when you're doing an investigation, for example, as a journalist, as an activist, but also as a bank that's doing business with these people.
All excellent projects, and I'm very excited that Wikidata is helping make them happen. So my first question for you would be, if you can share a moment where you thought like, yeah, my project really made a difference here now. Someone got excited about it. Someone did something cool with it. Who wants to go first?
I can go, I guess. I have two. I'll say two because one of them was really. So we have a partnership with universities in Brazil. One of them is the University of the state of São Paulo, and we have a kind of a formation course for journalists to become fact checkers. And from this course, we had two super interesting aha moments, I would say. One of them was after they graduated from the course in university and having us on the resume, they were able to actually become fact checkers, like professional fact checkers. We had two cases like that. And the other thing was that I received a message in the middle of the night once from one of those interns asking me to explain more about Wikidata and Wikipedia and how they could contribute. So it was awesome because before we started working with them, they didn't know the movement, and it clear stuck with them having to deal with that in our program.
Yeah, for me, it was nearly the same. I'm being asked by master students to help them export my data, which is not my data, but Wikidata data, because CiviData is only showing it, to be used for their master thesis to study NGOs, in that case in Germany, and to find out more about, in that case, gender in boardrooms of NGOs. And therefore they needed a base of being the top 100 NGOs, and that's exactly what we are giving them.
Maybe for Open Sanctions, we've been obviously used as a resource quite a lot since 2022. So the first time that our database was really running happened to be in January of 2022, and then the war against Ukraine started. And so we've seen a lot of uptake from journalists who want to understand who is being sanctioned, who isn't being sanctioned. We see a lot of uptake also from academia. So what's kind of interesting is we have a whole bibliography of kind of technical papers that are written using our data, but then also a lot of papers that are sort of looking at geopolitics and policy outcomes. And that's quite fun to see kind of how different things can be used.
It's also a bit hard to track impact because we're not really collecting data from anyone. So it's if they keep in touch. But one interesting thing we found is, of course, we clean up a lot of data on Wikidata and make it queryable. Sometimes we clean lists on Wikipedia as well because it's outdated. And in one of those runs, we sort of like, well, the number of embassies in the Statistics Bureau on Sweden and on the State Department are not the same. And like, which one is correct? And it turned out neither of them were correct, but after contacting them, they managed to update it. So sort of like real world impact, not exactly what we intended to do, but sort of kind of in that direction.
Nice. It reminds me of similar things that happen around Wikilove's monuments, for example, where the public databases then get updated thanks to Wikipedians doing the work.
Also, sometimes people from organizations or from institutions are looking at that data because it's more accurate or it's shown in a better way. I have that quite often, that people look at my site to look how their own organization was performing in the last years, because we have graphs and things like that, which most NGOs usually don't have.
We even have a story of an agency remembering, oh, did we have that Flickr account? Who was having that? And sort of like that was documented in Wikidata some years ago, but then they stopped using it, or the person working there stopped working there, and then they sort of like had to dig up the password to retrieve it.
Still little things. Nice. Now let's maybe take a bit of a detour to why is Wikidata valuable for your project, and why did you decide to actually build it on top of Wikidata's data?
Maybe I can start. So we use Wikidata as a source for data about political office holders around the world, right? And what's really amazing is that we have to answer the question: is that person still relevant to the public interest? Like, is there still a real public interest, a reason to think about them? And so that depends on kind of what level of government they're in. And so whether they kind of used to run a government, or whether they're the mayor of a small town who's been out of office for 5 years, right? And the standards of who should be considered a public figure, how long, are based on a lot of these factors. And so the fact that Wikidata has like this very detailed data model about political positions and who's been holding what political position at what time really allows us to sort of algorithmically start to decide, is that person still a relevant person, or are they just a retiree that we should kind of not process information about? And that's really fantastic.
And it's kind of similar for us working with public organizations and agencies. Like, already looking at Wikidata, all of the big ones that are in there, they might not be modeled well, but they because they have Wikipedia articles already. And I think if I would just guess, like 80% of them are already in Wikidata, but so far we can only query maybe 10% because we need to model them properly. So that's the beauty. Like, it's data that Wikidata wants, Wikidata cares for it, and Wikidata can also reuse it as well. So it's sort of like a win-win in that sense.
Yeah, in my case, it's more about the data, and it's just a question where to have it. And their Cividata is just Wikidata is just the place to combine data done or selected or found by different people, even so those people are not working on that project, like on Cividata, but they are just entering perhaps only their own organization or just some organizations in their sphere of work. And the idea of having an open database is what makes it really, really interesting. And the project Cividata is mainly a better front end for this data to be shown, and to talk about quality, to show it in a way that normal people can find mistakes, can find missing values, which is sometimes quite difficult inside of Wikidata.
Yeah, in our case, there were multiple reasons. One of them, so for LTFact, it was important to be open and transparent and contribute to a like public and open infrastructure that is already there. We always thought that we were not going to create a movement. We were just going to sum with the ones that are already there and try to bring in yet another tool, but maybe a tool that can make a difference. When we decided to use Wikidata, one of the things were that, like, if you think about the Wikimedia movement, it has become the backbone of knowledge on the internet, right? And it's kind of hard to think about that information that we have access today, like not being part of our lives. And that's like just thanks to Wikipedia, Wikidata, like all sister projects, all the movement. And because we have this kind of it's taken for granted, we realized that if we didn't contribute back, we would not be like impactful on that infrastructure. But before we were able to contribute back, we were actually gaining more than we would expect. So our first prototype, we just wanted common pictures of personalities on the platform because it would be easier. And then Wikidata had a connection to that. So we created like a prototype with that and immediately brought value to what we were creating. And then we realized that for some Brazilian personalities, there were missing information, description, like Wikipedia pages. And I think that's where the synergy happened. Right now, we have a different view on what we can do with Wikidata because we have different challenges as well. I think yesterday, like Eduardo, one of the members, presented our will to engage more with automated triage for verification requests, and like just having the data that is provided by Wikidata to make like smart decisions about whether we should like check an information from a specific personality or a specific topic. That's just amazing, and it's impossible to get that. I think any movement would not be able to do that by themselves, and that's just awesome. So the reason that we are still here, I'll say.
That's amazing. And you touched already a bit on struggles. So maybe we can continue with that, Matthias. What's the biggest struggle for you right now?
The biggest struggle, I would say, like from our platform perspective, is to have people actually fact checking. We realize that no one wants to do that, and there is a lot of people out there that wants to do it, but doesn't know how to do it. And our challenge now is to properly like route to people that have like different expertise and knowledge about certain topics, or just willing to check a specific, I don't know, maybe they're They want to just check a political spectrum in Brazil, and then we have like this like kind of like motivated competition between people from different sides trying to fact check each other, which I think is healthy in the end. But our main challenge is to have people actually fact checking. And the reason, like right now with Wikidata, we are trying to like we want at some point to use knowledge that is out there to improve automated fact checking. Although I don't believe that we are going to ever have something without a human that can be as accurate as possible, or actually fight misinformation. That will be like an evergreen challenge for us. But right now, I would say we need to understand how people want to actually check facts so we can provide them the tool.
Jan, how about you?
Yes, I think there's 3 different struggles that we've struggled all along with, and I think we continue to. It's sources, local context, and what was the third one? And language in some cases. Because even if you find the sources, if you can't interpret them, or if the automated translation is not nuanced enough, because sometimes like with these political organizations and how they are working, like you really need to figure out, well, what is the current state here? And we started with Sweden. I'm from Sweden, and I still sort of like struggled with the local context, sort of like you almost need to be a political science major. Looking at the US right now, it's very difficult to find sources of what is an agency right now today. It might have been something last week, but it's maybe not today. So it's yeah. So you need all those 3 and then cover all the world. So it's going to take some time.
And is the problem that the sources don't exist or are not reliable, or?
It's all kinds of problems with that. Sometimes don't exist at all, like you can't find them easily, and sometimes they exist, but they seem like they're out of date. Like you know that there's been an election, and you don't know, like, oh, it's still the former minister here. Which like is the rest of the ministries then all right, or is that also out of date?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Jonna, how about you?
Yeah, open data projects would be so much easier if they would have open data. So on the one hand, it's really, I mean, I'm working with NGOs in most countries. There is no public data available at all. So it's all in annual reports, completely non-standardized. And then in other countries, in my case, in the US, it's no problem because they have open text data for organizations. So there I can have an API, I can work with that. It's totally fine. So that's the one side to have the database. And on the other hand, it's struggling with community management. On the one hand, inside of Wikidata, you mentioned Wiki projects. We have our own Wiki project, but it's not really a community management platform. So that's not the strength of Wikidata and, in my opinion, most other Wiki projects. And those who are interested, they struggle with, yeah, I wouldn't even say with Wikidata, they struggle with a database. They struggle with this form of communication. So most of them are able to edit the one NGO they are interested in or involved in, but then they usually stop because then it gets too complicated and perhaps to work with imports and things like that. At least in my sphere, the nonprofit sphere, most people are not that tech savvy. And I don't even think it's about the technical complications, but just about interfaces, about entering, about understanding what they are doing. So that's my biggest struggle in finding people who are not interested in just 5 NGOs, but were really interested in contributing to the project inside and outside of Wikidata.
maybe for us, sort of we've had this problem of disambiguating the people that we're looking at, right? So we used Wikidata as one data source, but we have, I think, 60 or 70 other data sources that we get information about politicians from. And then trying to determine if like this person is the same as that person becomes really difficult, right? Like sometimes it says researcher there, then we know it belongs sort of more to the scientific cloud of Wikidata. But then obviously people graduate from university and they do become politicians. And so sometimes it is the same one. We've even had cases where Wikidata says pro soccer player, and then we look into it and yes, he's now the Minister of Culture of country X. So the crossover of people not being in one clean bucket of humanity has been really troubling us. And then also like based on that, the possibility of feeding back the information that we scrape from other official sources and making that show up in Wikidata is something that's, we've struggled to kind of do it in a bulk way because, we need to have it perfectly disambiguated before we can kind of start feeding in lots of 700 members of parliament or whatever from country X.
Yeah, that's a similar problem we have with some NGOs who have one name and then they have 5 different legal types in 4 different countries, and they are all named the same, but the one is a foundation, the other one is an association. And just to filter and find out what is quite complicated. And of course, in Wikipedia, it's one article. We all know that problem.
Sounds very familiar, indeed. But Friedrich, you were talking about trying to contribute back to Wikidata, which is an excellent lead to our next question to talk about, which is giving back to Wikidata. And how is Open Sanction thinking about that?
We've been more of a consumer than we like. And so we're now starting a new project that is going to try and help us to kind of cross-reference official sources, Wikipedia articles, and then Wikidata. But I shouldn't spoil it too much because in an hour, I think my 2 colleagues, Brenna and Johan, are going to give a session about that. So just stay on the line and you'll find out much more.
Very good. Matthias, you also mentioned giving back to Wikidata. So how about you?
Yeah, I believe I would say the same as Friedrich to the state of what we have been doing so far. Like we didn't contribute much. We did have like interventions, but I believe that our next step, which is using Wikidata to intelligently triage verification requests, is going to require us to engage much more with Wikidata, because the more accurate is the database, the better will be our triage system. So we're looking forward to that. This week we had to review multiple like news outlets in Brazil that we actively monitor, and there were some outdated followers on social media, which is an input that we use on the triage system to determine the severity or the likability of spreading disinformation or something like that. So that was awesome because we were able to just increase a little bit our accuracy on the experiments just by editing Wikidata, which is way better than having to write multiple lines of code, I would say. Sometimes.
Yeah. Jan?
You go.
Yeah, for us, it's more, I mean, CiviData is a Wikidata project. So all data we show is from Wikidata. But to be honest, most data we show, or mainly I put into Wikidata. So that's the one side. And the other side is, since we are more or less more attractive front end for normal users, there are around 300 people a day at the moment looking at the data. And I think that's to come back to the question about quality insurance. That's one of the main things we need in Wikidata, to have more eyeballs on it, to find, this organization is inside of the list 2 times. Why is it like that? Or that name is not the right name anymore, and things like that. Oh, the data, that's impossible. It can't be on number 5 or whatsoever. So just showing the data to more people means also to have more feedback on what's right and what's wrong.
It's very similar for us as with the CiviData. Most most of the items are already there. We improve them, and it's a lot of work with the types and the classes, and of course then you get sidetracked and oh, this is the list of this, and this is the category of that, and you sort of like make that connected, like you do, and you deep dive in the position holders and stuff like that, and into the laws, and then suddenly, oh, what was I doing now again? Yeah. I'm working on the ministries. Yes, okay, let's get back to that.
Yeah, I want to double down on the just real quick on the knowing the data model is super important for us to contribute back, right? Like not knowing is definitely something that held us back in the past, and now we're trying to understand at least what we use.
Sounds very good. Jan, we're getting lost in a rabbit hole there. All the fancy things you can do with Wikidata. Let's switch topics a bit. Sometimes people don't know about really cool stuff in Wikidata. So for you, what is a hidden gem in Wikidata that others might not know about, but that is actually really cool or useful or whatever when you're trying to build on top of Wikidata? Friedrich, do you want to tell us?
Like we've found absolutely marvelous stuff in there. I think kind of we mentioned before kind of the difficulty of disambiguating people. The fact that Wikidata has not just kind of people as entities, but also names of humans, family names, but also given names, and then try kind of multiplexes them into different languages, different scripts. That has been an amazing resource for us to find out about and then start to harness as a way of sort of matching people across different languages, across different scripts, right? Being able to kind of combine records about let's say a politician that's written in the Cyrillic script here and that's written in like a Latin script there. So whoever, maybe they're in this room, is working on name data in Wikidata, it's just stuff that couldn't be done without sort of manual curation to the same level of quality, right? Because anytime you try to do it statistically, it falls apart. So it's kind of, it can exist no other way than by community and by careful manual improvement.
Yeah, for me, for a tool, it's OpenRefine to be able to work with bigger data sets, to import and to mix and match. As I said, quite a lot of countries have no really common identifier for NGOs and things like that. So we have to work with a lot of different data points. And the other hidden gem really is, again, being multilingual. It's just so fun as a German with speaking a little bit of English, but nothing else, to be able to look into other countries, to see the data from a different country. I just added Israel during the weekend with I don't understand a letter of Hebrew, and still now it's there on CiviData, a list of NGOs being active. 2/3 of them have an English description and things like that. That's just amazing.
We mentioned it a couple of times, but I still think it's sort of like a hidden gem, and that's the corners of communities, like the wiki projects. We have one wiki project for GovDirectory, but we reach out to all the different ones. Like if we're working with a country where we have focus week, we always ping that, because there's like the local knowledge is so much valuable. And sometimes we ping the wiki project law or wiki project every politician. So like all of these small communities that care about what they really care about, connecting with them, that's a gem for sure.
Yeah, to me, like at least when I found, and to me it was hidden, and then I found it was a gem, was the shape of the Earth property, which is like, to me, just amazing that we can get on the same page, like all of the views, even the ones that we know are not scientifically proven or false, in there, and then you can actually like bring some value to the conversation, like contested versions of the shape of the Earth, or the actual accepted version of the shape of the Earth. I think this is amazing, especially from the point of view of information integrity and fact checking. So that was a gem for me when I found out.
Nice. And you bring up an interesting thing, because the complexity of the data model is often one of the things reusers struggle with, even though it is amazing for the reasons you were talking about. But let's talk maybe a bit about things you maybe learned the hard way when building on Wikidata that might be tips you can give to others who are trying to do the same. What have you learned that someone else maybe doesn't need to learn again?
I think I can start here, because the enthusiasm from the Wikidata users is amazing, but that can also sometimes be a little bit of an unknown problem, because one thing we learned the hard way was someone adding organizations and municipalities that will exist in the future. So think about how you make your queries and your quality assurance of them to also take in place that the modeling might include things in the future, and you might have to filter for this will not exist in 2 years. So, because I think we had in Denmark, suddenly there were 7 provinces instead of just 5. Like, why? Oh, there's 2 more coming up. Okay.
Who wants to go next? Jonna, maybe?
I'm thinking about yeah, I think coming back to Wiki projects, I think it's one of the hidden gems, and one of the things Jan said, it's such a cool thing, and I think it is, but for new users, just to stumble over the best projects fitting, just to find active projects, just easy things like to find the project of your country if there's one existing, to find a sub-community. I needed some time to find those, and I think that's really, if you find them and if you find them to be good for your field of work, that's so important, because on Wikidata quite often we have the problem, quite unlike in at least the big Wikipedias, that you create something, you make a proposal, and there is no feedback. While on Wikipedia, we quite often have the opposite problem of creating something and there's feedback immediately, and not always in the good way. In Wikidata, we have the opposite problem, and that's why I would go for that.
A lot for us has been about kind of retrieving the data, about volume, right? So we try to download these profiles, and then you need to kind of download the labels for everything that they reference, etc. And so kind of doing that in a way that is still polite is a bit of a thing. So we have like massive caches in place, which is also turns out to be nice against vandalism. Then we had to learn that when we import politicians' names, we do have to filter out the poop emoji. And now we're trying to learn how to give back, right? This also feels a little bit like the comparison I had was sort of like trying to release a new medicine, right? You know that there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of process that needs to be adhered to in order to be a good citizen of sort of this new world. But like for us to kind of understand like what is like a polite and an appropriate thing to do as we try and put more and more data into Wikidata. It's all very well documented, but it's just a lot to learn.
Yeah, my recommendation for anyone that is trying to build something with Wikidata is that even if you don't see the data that you wanted there, that's not a reason to not use it, because you can put it there. Like you can contribute back, and you can shape it in a way that makes sense. And chances are that someone will correct what you did, and you're going to have the power of the community to decide how knowledge should be shaped for that specific problem you're trying to solve. So the community side and like the impact and scale of what Wikidata has arrived to is just amazing. So that would be my suggestion, like not try to give up and try to build something else on a different database, because it will be harder. Wikidata is what it is because of the community, and there is definitely value being a part of that.
100%. Now we've talked a lot about your projects, and I'm sure some people are excited about your particular project. What's something they can do to help you? Maybe Friedrich, you want to start?
Yeah, I have to refer to Brenna and Johan again. We're actively testing this new tool called the Polyloom, loom.everypolitician.org. We stick around for an hour, see what it does, and then help us, give us feedback, send us like your complaints, your thoughts, your ideas. Maybe if you want, the whole thing is of course open source, so adapt it for other sort of like Wikidata feeding purposes. I think it could be really cool.
Jan, do you want to continue?
Yes, I mean, there's so much to do. So I think if you just take a look at like your local context, is the municipality or the province you're living in well represented on Wikidata? Just have, or maybe you interacted with social security thing agency because you were getting parental leave or something, and you know the way around their website, like those things, like what you already kind of know or like have a sense for, is this correct or not, and then take a look at Wikidata, is that already there or not? And sometimes it's not, so just improve that little part, and if we all do that, that will be splendid.
Yeah, for us it would be to add your own country, because I mean, I started the project, I'm from Germany, so it's still quite centristic about Germany, the neighboring countries, English-speaking countries. So it would be amazing to have countries there, and it's for CiviData a two-step process. So on the one hand, just to understand the country. So in the Wiki project, we have country pages where we just try to list, okay, in that country, there are those kind of NGOs, those kind of properties and things like that. And in the second step, adding financial data and having a listing on CiviData. So if there's somebody from a country not listed yet or interested in improving the countries already listed, that would be amazing.
In our case, if you're from Brazil, you can read our reports. You can also be part of the movement and check facts, or do anything else. Like we have volunteers, like we have like developers as volunteers. We have journalists as volunteers. So we have also someone from like a biology background that just like to do a specific sort of fact-checking like guidance on how we should check a field topic. So I think there is room for like a lot of skill sets. And if you're not from Brazil, I would say that we are open source. You can play around with it if you want to. If you think that it can be, there is a community on your country that could benefit from that, I'll be happy to engage with. And yeah, that we don't have today a documentation about what we care on Wikidata that can improve our tooling. I think that's something that we can do in the future, like knowing exactly how to contribute in a way that you can impact and improve, I don't know, like misinformation, disinformation triage, or even how personalities are linked in the platform. I think we can do that in the future, but I would say like these are the main ways of contribution to our project.
Excellent. We have about 3 minutes left, and I have one last question for you guys. We talked a lot about your projects. Do you have now's your chance to name drop some other cool Wikidata powered projects that you think are cool? Do you have any that people should check out?
Maybe I'm a politics nerd. I'm a big fan of Gov Directory. I also think that Open Parliament TV is amazing. So throwing out kudos to those.
And we had a couple of talks about Scholia yesterday, and I want to drop them in again here, because even though that was created for academics, if you plug in a Swedish politician, it will actually look quite interesting, since there's so many parliamentarian documents in there. So every motion or proposition they have signed connects them together in the net. You can see who is working with who.
Now I forgot the URL. I'm searching, but I have not enough time. I've done by also two Germans, a cool art project where you can look into the different museums in your area and to have a kind of a museum finder based on Wikidata. I'm searching for the URL. I was prepared when we talked about it and I forgot it.
Oh, good. If you find it, put a URL in the chat. Cool. Matthias, how about you?
I want to talk about a project I want to bring more to the Wikimedia movement, because they use MediaWiki and they are called Wikifavelas in Brazil. And they did an amazing work mapping. During the pandemic, they did an amazing work mapping places where people could get donations and medicine in the favelas, which was amazing. And there are a lot of stuff that they did could be on Wikidata, could be on wikis. I tried every time connect with them somehow. But if you know a project like that, I think if you know a project could be on Wikidata, I think it's also a good thing to engage with.
Thank you so much, guys. That was great. Audience, do check out these projects if you're not familiar with them already. If you have more questions, as Alan said, please put them in the Etherpad, and we all can take some time to answer some more questions in the Etherpad, now that we're out of time for this session. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you, Lydia.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists for the wonderful projects and contributing to the good of humanity using Wikidata. And also big thank you to Lydia for moderating and facilitating the wonderful session. Next up, we have a very